Hello and welcome back to All for United tactical preview, looking ahead to the Watford versus Manchester United fixture. A massive game for both teams, both at respective ends of the table, although it seems like United are closer to the bottom than the top at the minute. But got a consistent panel, as you'd probably expect. Got some of the regulars in to talk you through the game. Should be a really interesting one. We're going to talk about Donny possibly starting. A lot of news coming through about that. Perhaps Sancho as well. That's all to come. So I'll introduce everyone straight after this.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Here we have it then. Stu, Abdul, brilliant to see you as ever. Becoming a regular in this, isn't it? But yeah, I suppose big games against Watford is probably a sentence you should never really be saying. But with the situation we're in, every game seems like a bit of a cup final. So, Stu, I suppose I'll come to you first. Has it been nice having an international break away from United?
Yeah, it's been great, hasn't it? I didn't even watch any of the football, to be honest. I mean, I heard England's 10-0 win and everybody celebrating it like it was some, I don't know, amazing victory and that. I mean, crikey, 10-0 in international football. I mean, what is going on? I mean, seriously, what is the world coming to? And the problem for me about it is, and you can say what you like about Harry Kane. I think he's a great player, a great finisher in his day, but edge closer to becoming the all-time England goal scorer and playing matches against Albania and San Marino and things. It doesn't sit well with me. So there you go. It's just one of those. Those are types of games where you can get a bit of consistency and play fringe players. You don't need to play a full strength 11. I just didn't buy it. So I didn't really watch that. I saw a tiny bit of Wales, so I was quite chuffed to see Wales make the playoffs. I was quite pleased to see Scotland make the playoffs. It was quite good. And poor old Portugal. Well, there you go. Who'd have thought that they would have had to potentially qualify against the playoffs? So that would be quite interesting. So it was great to not have to think about Man United. But then, of course, you turn on Twitter and it's the same old bollocks every day. People coming out with threads about who our new manager should be and all this kind of nonsense. But actually, last time I checked, I think we've still got a manager. So I don't know why they waste their time, these people. So I've decided to not waste my time by reading them and getting annoyed. So, yeah, looking forward to Saturday. Women had a good result last night, by the way, 1-2-1 in the Conti Cup in the derby. So that's a great result. And so, yeah, let's focus on Saturday. It's a 3:00 kickoff, which is kind of unusual for us, but we seem to be. We've had a couple this season, so I don't think it's on mainstream TV. But look, a word of caution, guys. We always seem to struggle down at Watford every time, even when we've been playing well. It's always been a tough old ask down at Vicarage Road or whatever it's called these days. So kind of looking forward to it. I know we'll talk about who we think will play in a minute. So, yeah, bring it on.
Fair enough. That was quite rousing from you, but
yeah, well, it won't last. It won't last.
I'll come to you then, Abdul. Just quickly on the international break, then, because obviously you specialise in watching football, understanding it, sort of reporting on that sense. What do you do in an international break? Do you do the same for international games, or is it just a bit of a nice welcome break for you? You're muted. Oh.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Yeah. No, it depends on what I want to do, really. So I usually follow South American football more than European. So I'll follow the Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Peru, and even North American as well sometimes. Because their timings is usually better for me than the timings of the European ones. And because, I feel there's a lot of discrepancies now between teams. like South American qualifications, World Cup qualifications, are more competitive than the Europeans, because the discrepancy between the big teams and the small teams is becoming very vast. That you get results like San Marino and Andorra and some other European country that they probably won't even make anywhere near any serious competition. And people like us, as to say, stat pad against these guys, and then they think they're world beaters when they're actually really not, really. So the South American, they're not the most beautiful football. The referees are terrible as well, but they're at least they're tough, they're intense. There's a little bit of competition between the teams. Yeah, obviously Brazil is kind of like the top dog over there with Argentina, but they're not that far away from the rest that it's just a walk in the park for them. So I like that a little bit more. Yeah.
You got to find some beauty in the occasional leg breaking challenge in the South American football.
Yeah. They still do that stuff. They still do that. Yeah.
Proper football, that is.
Yeah.
Stu's era kicking in. But we'll get to the issue at hand. United Watford. We do actually, unfortunately, have to watch United again this weekend if we can find a dodgy stream that works. But I'll bring up some comments because it fits in nicely with the point. The Athletic and the Mirror both reporting that Donny Van De Beek could be in line to start for United. Stu, is this something you want to see?
Absolutely. Look, I've been calling it for a while. And to be fair, Callum and Connor made quite a decent point a couple of uncuts ago, actually, with regards. I think you're on it, James. I'm not quite sure. But if you remember, they mentioned a point, why is there such a hoo-ha about Donny not playing, etc. Whenever he's been on, he's not really made a meaningful contribution. I kind of understand their points on that. But we all know that there is a very, very gifted footballer. It's not my dog. There's an extremely gifted footballer that lives under Donny's skin. And I can imagine a lot of it when he comes onto the pitch is born out of frustration and an absolute eagerness to do the very best he can to kind of prove his worth to the team. And I've seen players do that at all levels. Everybody does it. You try your very, very best. And sometimes you become over eager and you try way too much. And whereas Sancho has kind of gone the opposite way, he's tried to remain safe. And we need to see a bit more out of Sancho. So, look, I'm all for Donny starting because there's a couple of things, really. Ollie, I think, he's got nothing to lose right now as a manager of Manchester United. The fan base, the bulk of the fan base, for whatever reason, just have had enough of him. You can see on certain games why, but on certain games you can't see why. And I've seen various threads during the international break about people calling it a so-called rebuild and things of that nature. I mean, a rebuild just doesn't happen. He didn't do it in the summer. He's spent 2.5 years trying to find a way of playing. And I made a point, I think it was on our last tactical preview, about the goalkeeping issue, and maybe it's time for a change again between De Gea and Henderson. And so if I was Ollie, and I'm just speaking about myself now, I would make a few radical changes on Saturday, because if he goes with the same type of 11, McTominay and Fred, etc., and we come up short or we draw, it's just going to intensify pressure on him. But if he kind of takes a deep breath, looks at his squad depth, I don't buy that the club have been impressed with him in training. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I mean, from what I hear, he trains exceptionally well, and the type of person it is, you would expect him to be a consummate professional. So I don't buy that. I think Ollie's got to get off this safe step that he's on. He's got to stick his head way over the parapet. He's almost got to lean over and grab something new. And I think Donny will do that. And I think Donny could really get it at Watford, because I think they play a 4-1-4-1, some ridiculous, or they did against Arsenal anyway, some ridiculous system, and they get Sissoko as a holding player. Now, we all know Sissoko on his day is a very, very talented player, but you can get at him. When he's bad, he is fucking bad. He's like Fred, isn't he? Sometimes Fred will have a really good game and you think, well, there is a player in there. Sissoko's the same. So I'd like to see Donny in there alongside. I'd like to see us do a play 4-3-3, if I'm being brutally honest. I like to go out, attack Watford from the get-go and try and get 3 or 4 goals. So I'd love to see Donny play. I'd like to see him ping in with Matic. Now, before everybody jumps on me in the comments, there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that won't work. I'm not saying there's any evidence to suggest it will work apart from pre-season against Everton where it did work. I'm not saying there's any evidence in this particular game that will work, but I think, sometimes, hey, go rogue, move away from what you're used to, walk into the dark with your eyes open for once instead of with your eyes shut, and just see where it takes you, because we have got a very talented squad of players. And these players, by the way, they've got to want to win. There's a will to win in there, but they've got to want to win. And so that's what I would do. But I'll give you my starting 11 a bit later.
Yeah, we'll move on to personnel and formation and everything later. I'll bring this comment up just so that we have acknowledged it, because we'll come back to this question in a while. So stay tuned for that. But Abdullah, I'll come to you. Donny Van De Beek coming back into this 11 possibly. Obviously, nothing confirmed. It's all speculation at the minute. But how do we fit him into a balanced midfield, I suppose, is the key question.
He needs a Matic beside him, that's for sure. Like, you can't play Donny with Scott. You can't play Donny with Pogba. I'm talking if we're sticking with the 4-2-3-1, by the way. You can't play him with Fred either, because Fred. People have seen Fred play for Brazil, and they compared him to United and said, "Oh, he plays a lot better for Brazil than he plays for United." But they omit the part where Fabinho is next to Fred, babysitting him. So if we had a Fabinho, a lot of our midfield problems get solved automatically. And Fabinho being there allows Fred to do Fred things, to press, to go forward, to hassle people without worrying about the space he's leaving behind him, because Fabinho knows when to intercept and when not to intercept. But we don't have that. We have the Matic equivalent, which is on his day is a very good equivalent, but are you going to get him on his day? That's the question, right? So when we play against Everton in the preseason, it was more of a 4-3-3. Which Daniel James played on, just for the defensive shape.
He did.
Yeah, and Bruno and Van De Beek were the 2 forwards, were the 2 8s that were bombing forward, right? So, and Matic was covering for both. The cool thing about that midfield 3 is that they're all hardworking, right? So Bruno does his fair share of working, whether it's sometimes the decisions are not good enough or good, it's another question. But all 3 of them work. Matic is slow, but he works. Van De Beek doesn't have the defensive positioning, but he works. Bruno Fernandes, same thing. And then add James with them. Add I think Anthony Martial played on that day as well.
Yeah, he did.
So you get a very solid defensive shape, which does not risk you leaving Matic in the middle of the park alone, right? So that combination can be looked at. I was gonna even suggest it myself today. So it depends. Like when you say some player plays better for United plays better for another team than United. Okay, you have to look at the team as a whole. Who is he playing next to, in front of, to, behind to, next to? This all matters. It's just not like you drop him there and he starts automatically playing better. It really depends.
It's a fair point, isn't it? I think a lot of fans would like to see that 4-3-3 come back as well with the Matic, Van De Beek and Bruno. I think that'd be quite appealing. But do you think, you said obviously last time it truly worked well. Obviously we tried it in a fashion against West Ham in the Cup and it didn't work. But if we were to try it again, do you think it would be imperative that we had a Daniel James type player to keep it balanced, I suppose?
The question isn't Daniel James himself; it's what Daniel James does off the ball, right? If you can teach Rashford or Mason Greenwood or Anthony Martial, your wide players, to do the things that Daniel James does, then you have both the off the ball and the on the ball qualities. So Daniel James had the off ball qualities more than he had on ball qualities, which unfairly judged. But the guy had something on the ball, but it's just people didn't like it enough because he's not silky enough, because he's not like a Rashford or a Greenwood. But okay, let's say he's 0 on the ball. Let's say that, what separated him from the rest was what he did off the ball. And that balanced our team a lot, So you might not get something out of him forward, but you were getting a balanced shape, a good defensive setup, and that's what he added to you. And that's why Oli played him in every single big game, because he mattered that much. Now we don't have him. We have the equivalents. We don't have an equivalent, actually. The only equivalent we have is Lingard. Probably. Yeah, Lingard. Or Cavani if you want to play him out wide. And these are one of the big issues that we have at the moment.
Sorry, I will come to you in a second still. I just want to
carry
on this sort of thought process. Do you think there's many people do you think there's many players in world football that do what Daniel James did as well as he did it?
As well as he did it, I think there are, but a few. Like Sadio Mane, people say that he doesn't do cover work, but he actually does more than Mo Salah. Mo Salah is the least hardworking in terms of off ball at Liverpool, But Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino make up for that, from being the forward 3. He presses okay. He's not world class in pressing as well, Mo Salah. But what he adds on the ball, basically, subsides for everything else that he doesn't do off the ball. And his teammates know that, and they work around him. So, for example, we have Ronaldo right now, right? Let's say, I'm pretty sure everyone will agree Ronaldo is a little bit better than Mo Salah in terms of goal scoring, at least. Not, So if we have the people around Ronaldo that can do that can do the work that Firmino does, that can do the work that Mane does off the ball, and a midfield that works hard enough, then you'll get the best out of Ronaldo while keeping your defensive shape intact. Unfortunately, you don't have these guys. You have guys that really still need to learn that. And this is where lies the issue, right? The issue is, okay, who can I play Ronaldo with that will compensate for him or do the work for him, basically? So you have two categories, really. You have the talented forwards that don't do work off the ball, and you have the less talented forwards but do all the work off the ball. In the first category, you have Greenwood, the biggest one of them. He doesn't do shit off the ball. Sorry for the word. Doesn't do anything off the ball. And you have Ronaldo is that category too. And you have, to a lesser extent, Marcus Rashford. You have Anthony Martial a little bit. And then the second category, you have Lingard and Cavani. And you had Daniel James, but you got rid of him. So how can you balance between these two categories? That should be your forward line. You can't play only from category A, and you can't play only from category B. It has to be a balancing act. Unfortunately, we have too little of category B, the hard workers off the ball.
So just adding to what Abdel's saying, what most fans talk about is the eye test. You hear it all the time, or you read about it all the time. Oh, it's the eye test. But actually, the biggest myth in football at any level is a player that has got so much more positional sense and offers a greater balance to the team than somebody who can actually dribble past 5 players. You just don't see it. You forget it. You don't get it.
Yeah.
And what Daniel James was good at was playing between the lines or positioning himself between the lines so that you could quite easily disrupt their back four, their centre half to their fullback, for example, just by standing in a particular pocket. So he could stop that outlet. He could take 2 or 3 steps back and he'd be on the halfway line, ready to support the left back, Luke Shaw, or if he's playing on the right side, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So he's got this about him. There's very, very few players that are able to do both. And Abdel's right. You're kind of good at one thing and maybe not so good at the other.
Yeah.
The only real exponent who looked absolutely lazy as anything, I've mentioned him before, but was a wonderful footballer, was Jan Molby. And he used to just wander around the centre circle, but he was an absolute demon of a passer.
Like, for example, Cavani is a very hard worker off the ball, right? But would you compare Cavani's ability on the ball to Martial? I say Martial is better on the ball than Cavani.
Yes, he is.
But off the ball, Cavani is world class. Like, you will never get striker like Cavani off the ball. And in addition to that, the work he does defensively as well. So it's a balancing act. If you want to play a player that doesn't do anything off the ball, okay, sure, fine. But surround him with players that will compensate for his lack of work. You can't have a forward line that does not work off the ball, all of them. That's just death. That's what Oli did against City.
Correct.
And against City, it was all Oli for that starting lineup that he picked. Like, he made Greenwood mark Rodri, which, okay, initially it's a sound plan. But if you're going to make that plan with 2 players that don't really do anything off the ball, then your plan will collapse. It will collapse.
It's true, that is. Manchester United, if you look at it over the seasons, has always had this one player. Park Ji-sung was one. He was Wayne Rooney. Phil Neville. People used to absolutely vilify
Real Madrid had Benzema.
Yeah, correct. We've had
Ronaldo.
Yeah, it is all about complementing. I say a lot about centre halves because that's where I played, so I've got an understanding of that and central midfield. But it is all about how you complement certain players. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, up until this point, and we'll see what happens Saturday, Ollie's forgotten that philosophy. He's forgotten about it. He's forgotten about what worked for him when he was playing, because he worked slightly better with Sheringham. For whatever reason, York and Cole were great. He worked slightly better with Sheringham, 2 different types of players. He's forgotten that philosophy. He needs to kind of dig deep in himself again, actually believe in himself. He needs to believe in himself and his choices as a manager. And then the players will... Look, I don't know whether to believe everything that's in the press. I don't really. As working in the media, I know how it goes. A bit like yourself, James. But so, I don't believe all that. But if the players are wondering, well, the players are big enough and old enough, ugly enough to go to him and say, let's try this. Because you're not undermining the manager by talking to them about tactics. You just see things differently. Me and Abdel agree on 99% of things, but there are the odd 1 or 2 where we see it differently. I'm not saying he's right or I'm right or I'm wrong. We just see it slightly differently. And that's what football's about. What do you think about that, James? Anyway, what's your thoughts?
It feels weird saying, but I can completely echo it, given that I've grew up watching Cristiano Ronaldo, and yet Edison Cavani is my favourite player in this team. Daniel James was one of my favourite players in the team because they're they go under the radar, but they're the most important players in there. You could play the best players in the world. You put Ronaldo, Messi, Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, Toni Kroos all in a team. They're not going to win a game because they're not. It's not how football works. You need these.
They don't complement each other.
Yeah,
and I still see people that try to fit Bruno and Pogba together in a team. It's just not going to work.
Just doesn't work.
Like, the only way it works is if you bring 2 of Aaron Wan-Bissaka and put them in the middle of the pitch as inverted fullbacks and let Pogba and Bruno run things in front with 3 forwards. But we don't have those. So.
I think the proof is in the pudding as well. It's no coincidence that since Daniel James has left and Edison Cavani has been replaced by Ronaldo, results and performances have massively declined. So
you could say the same about De Gea and Henderson. and it's something I've been starting to bang on about, because you look at our defensive solidity, and people can, look at it. We went on a 15-game winning streak, didn't we, last season, with that defense, our defensive solidity, because they had a progressive goalkeeper behind them. Now, look, people will argue against that this season. De Gea has been brilliant, and there are games where he's been great, but there's games where he's been culpable. It just is what it is. I think, for whatever reason, the older that De Gea's got, I'm sorry for going from one end of the pitch to the other, but I actually think it mixes. I think it matches quite well. I think De Gea is getting scared.
Yeah,
goalkeeper.
Like, I know it will seem harsh, but I was rewatching the game. I like to torture myself. I watched the City game 4 times, and I was looking at how the front two were working together, because I remember I commented on one of your videos, I think the reaction that you guys did, all for United, and I said that Ollie picking Greenwood and Ronaldo together was the worst forward combination he could have picked. Like, there is no worse than this, because both of them don't do anything off the ball. And what annoyed me the most is Ronaldo was getting in the way of certain players. Whenever we had the ball, the moments we had the ball and we're trying to get out, he didn't move quick enough, or he wasn't in the center forward position because he's left dependent. So there were so many instances and scenarios, especially when Sancho came on the left, where Sancho and Ronaldo were on the same line in front of Shaw. And Sancho was making a run, but Ronaldo standing in front of Shaw and telling him to give him the ball. But you just blocked Shaw's path. He can't progress he was going to progress with the ball after he received it from McTominay. But just Ronaldo came to the left and blocked his path. So I'm like, this is where I'm saying that, unfortunately, he doesn't suit us, and because he's such a big player, he's given the freedom to do whatever he wants, right? So if, for example, Ronaldo's going to fixate himself into the center of the pitch, where we need him, that's his expertise anyway, okay, maybe we can work with that. Cavani used to do that. But no, he's leaving his center position and moving out to the left more, and also to the right sometimes.
Yeah.
And then there were many instances, and I could provide a lot of pictures of this, where Shaw had the ball on the edge of City's box or Sancho, and there was no one in the middle. Where is Ronaldo? He was with them in the same left half space or the left corner. I'm like, what are you doing there? So they still haven't learned how to play with them. He still haven't learned how to play with them.
Yeah.
Right? And the guy who did the things that we want him to do is on the bench or injured, unfortunately, for us. So it's such a mess, man. It's such a mess. And still, I would blame more Ollie than him in this, because okay, you wanted Ronaldo, or you didn't want him. Let's say you have him now. Okay, make these players understand that they need to do certain things for all it to work together. Like, you can't just put Greenwood on the right-hand side and expect him to do winger things. He hasn't learned it by now. Like, he started doing it a little bit last season. Towards the end of the season, he started improving a little bit. I was like, okay, wow, that's good. Greenwood is learning to track back. Greenwood is learning to help Aaron Bissaka. This season, it's as if he never did it. Zero. So you can't just keep playing him on the right and expect him to do it. He's going to cost you games. And Greenwood did cost Ollie games. And I know that the back line takes the brunt of it. And the back line is not clear of this also. They've done some horrendous mistakes. But that's Absolutely. Due to pressure. That's due to pressure.
Interesting, Abdul. You've spoken about something. So's Sheriff Bullet, if I've pronounced that correctly. Yeah. Something that I was taught very young, when I was about 7 or 8 years of age, and that is defensive shape and unit starts at the very, very top. Yeah. And you're talking about Greenwood in particular, and I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah,
he's either on his game or he's off his game, and there's no middle management to it. And you just can't rely on him at the moment. The way that the team is playing, and the way that Ollie wants to set up, you can't rely on Greenwood. Now,
you can't. Especially on the right. Like if
Yes,
you put him in
correct.
the middle, actually, even though he hasn't developed into a striker fully yet, it's much better for him to be in the middle than to be on the right.
Now, that's where I do agree with you as well, because you know me. He's not a number 9 for me. You know why? I've spoken about it many times. He will adapt to a number 9 in 2 or 3 years' time, but right now he's not. But isn't it funny, to get him out of the danger side area to cause us less problems? He's more suited in number 9. That's bad news, though, isn't it, for him as a player and for us as a unit? So,
it's also bad for Ollie that he's not recognizing that.
Well, no, I agree. So it begs the question, and we know the answer to it anyway, because again, it's something we've discussed on Saturday. What does he do? And we've already talked about if he plays Ronaldo through the middle, he's got to flank him with 2 workers. He's got to flank him with 2 workers. But I'll always go back though to the 2 fullbacks, Shaw and I don't know if Shaw's injured or not, whether he'll start. It could be Telles. We don't know. And Bissaka, to be more communicative to the likes of Sancho and Rashford. Just say it is those 2, and repositioning them. The same with Fernandes, Bruno. He's got to be more vocal to these guys, to these wingers. As if Van De Beek's on the pitch, he's got to be more vocal. Same with Matic, and we're not doing that at the minute. But I was taught as an 8-year-old, it would defend from the top. Make sure your shape is right when you're out of possession. Make sure your shape is right. Don't allow them to attack you quickly. Just block them. Just hold them up. And teams do that to us brilliantly. They block us and they hold us at the back quite nicely. And that's why we've been picked off on more than a few occasions.
And unfortunately, like I said, like the Liverpool game, then the City game, it just showed how much United don't know what they want to do. They don't know whether they want to be a pressing team or they don't want to be a pressing team. They want to be a team that holds off. And it's such a contrast to the games that we've played last season. And people say, well, we lost to Liverpool 4-2 at Old Trafford and at the end of the season. Yeah, we did lose to Liverpool 4-2, but you're just looking at the result. We actually played well.
We did.
What cost us that game? Just a couple of small mistakes in the build-up due to Liverpool's good pressing.
Yeah.
And if we had improved our midfield, maybe we wouldn't have done these mistakes this season. And that result maybe becomes 3-3, or that result becomes 3-2 for us.
Totally.
But there were a big section of that game where United were dominant. And Liverpool were the team defending. And Liverpool were the team that's trying to hold on to their 3-2 lead. It's just one mistake we did with Matic and Shaw, which led to Salah to break away for that 4th goal. There is a story to the game that you have to revisit. You can't just say, oh, well, we lost 4-2 there. I'm like, yeah, sure, we lost 4-2, but we were very competitive.
Yeah, fans don't look at it that way. They do.
We drew 0-0, but we were on the edge to getting a win at Anfield.
Should have beat them.
We should have beat them that time. We beat them in the FA Cup. It was an even game in the FA Cup, but we came out on top.
No, I totally agree.
So when you see those games, and then you see that 5-0 again, be like, that team lost their way. They don't know what they are anymore. They had a way, they had a vision of what they want to be, but they lost it. Like, we weren't the most pressing team under Ollie the past 2 seasons. We were like the 5th best.
Yeah.
And defensively, we were the 3rd best in the league, and I think the 10th or the 11th across Europe. The season before, we were like the top 5 defensive teams in Europe. So I don't want to hear the Ollie can teach a defensive system, but he, and it's him also, messed himself up by getting profiles that don't fit what he has, and now he can't control it.
I'd agree with that.
Set it up together anymore.
I'd agree.
He lost the template that he had.
Go get back. Gotta have the ball.
Exactly. He gotta have the courage to drop all the profiles that don't fit.
Yep.
And goes back to his template, or he's leading himself to his sacking. It's he himself is leading himself to the sack.
suppose he's been unfortunate as well because that option to get rid of Ronaldo from the team has been taken away because Cavani's not been fit for much of the season, I suppose. But we'll see. We'll see when Cavani's back whether he does change it up. But I wanted to move on because obviously, Abdul, you have to go in about 10 minutes, I think. So we'll move on to the last point. We'll bring this comment back up. If you're still watching, big respect. Thank you for being so patient. I'll come to you first, Stu. Obviously, back three, we've played for 3 games in a row now. Worked really well against Spurs. Didn't work so well against City or Atalanta. Is it time we scrapped it?
Back four.
Back four.
Yeah, I'd play a 4-3-3. I would on Saturday. I'd go out and I'd attack, but I wouldn't hesitate back four. No,
Abdul, same with you. Oh, go on. Sorry, Stu.
All I was going to say is, don't ask me about personnel because we don't know about Varane. It looks like he might be fit, but I don't know if he's been on the grass yet, so I don't know. But back four for me.
Yeah, same with me. I want us to go back with what we did and what worked for us. Trying to make it work with the talent we have and Ronaldo is just not going to work.
Yeah, agreed.
You either have to pick one of them. You have to pick the Ronaldo or the youngers, the wingers that we have. So you just have to pick one. Fair enough.
Well, obviously, Stu said not to mention personnel because we don't know if Varane's going to be fit or not. But I'm under the assumption that he's not going to be. If he's not trained yet, it'd be foolish of Solskjaer to include him in that squad. So would either of your opinions change if Varane was available? Because I think a back three of Maguire, Bailly and Lindelof is a recipe for disaster. But you saw against Spurs, you integrate Varane into it. It's a little bit more stable. Or are you just going back to a back four with Varane and Maguire?
Well, the interesting thing about Varane is he's used to playing both systems. Real Madrid played both systems. He played in a back three and he's played in a back four. Yeah. And when he's played in a back three, he's played alongside Pepe and Ramos. I mean, come on, even I could look good then. You know what I mean? I would.
To be fair, he did play well against Liverpool in a back three last season with Madrid next to Eder Militao and Nacho Fernandez.
He did indeed, yeah, which is something special when Nacho Fernandez is playing. But anyway, that's another point. But my point being, he's grown up with two of the best centre backs in world football at that particular time, alongside Chiellini and Bonucci. So you learn a hell of a lot. Now, if Varane's fit, you would put him alongside Maguire, but I would still only have him in a back two. I wouldn't play it back. I wouldn't go with a back three against Watford because I don't think we need to. But I think, as Abdel says, we've got to go back to what works for us. Ollie's got to start trusting his gut, really. And Abdel's also right. It's one or the other. If you're going to play Ronaldo, which is fine, we haven't got a problem with it because we know we'll score goals. You've got to have workman-like around him. You've got to have workman and a bit of craft and guile in the midfield. And then you've got to have that solidity at the back. But to go with a back four, I'm sorry, I'm going to advocate Henderson comes in on Saturday over De Gea for me. I'm gonna push with that.
It's a fair point as well because Henderson's going to demand to leave in January by the sounds of it if he's not played more regularly, and I think that'd be a massive waste, really.
I don't believe that for some reason. I really don't believe that. I believe one of two things will happen. Like De Gea is going to continue and make mistakes, and Ollie will drop him eventually. Ollie leaves, and the person who comes in will recognize that De Gea can't work and he needs Henderson. So both scenarios, it's a win-win for Henderson if he just waits a little bit. Because believe me, De Gea will not be able to save United for long. He just makes a couple of good saves, but he lets in goals, easy goals.
Well, going back to the back three question then, Abdul, obviously it did work very well against Spurs, but that's not really saying anything. Do you think that there is the infrastructure in place to deploy a back three, given we probably have one of the best natural wing backs in the world when he was at Porto with Alex Telles? Luke Shaw showed he can fit in as a left centre back. Is there promise for this system, or would you just scrap it altogether?
No, I think there's a promise in the system, but the problem is, like if you're gonna play the system against teams that are like Watford, and all those teams, like no problem. You'll feel like you're still playing the same way, like a back four. But if you're playing this system against teams that are like Liverpool, Man City, it's not a negative system. It's the way you go about it becomes very negative. Because you can be very attacking with a back three, by the way.
Yeah, you can,
be
yeah.
very, very attacking with a back three. But it just depends on how you deploy it and depending on who you're playing against. So we do have the players to play it. It's just it's the question of whether Oli puts them in the team or not. So if we're gonna do it, I just don't want to see Cristiano and Greenwood play in a front two. One of them, only one of them, and even Rashford as well. So if you're gonna play Cristiano, it has to be like a Sancho, a Lingard, or a Cavani beside him. And at the back, I would say go with both Van de Beek and Bruno, and with a Matic. And the wing backs can be Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Teller. That's very attacking.
I'd go with that. I'm personally not a fan of a back three. I don't like it. I think a back two with a good solid goalkeeper behind you and a good central midfielder is adequate enough as your main spine, your main quad. But
Henderson has to play, by the way, if we do play down the back three.
Well, 100%. I knew we are getting a bit of DG David De Gea stick here, and I accept that. I accept people's viewpoints about De Gea, but I think you need to look back at our solidity when Henderson was playing, and it's the same defensive unit, by the way, guys, that we're talking about. So I would say that. So I'm going 4-3-3, and I'm going with Abdel on Matic, Van de Beek, and Bruno. Yeah, that's who I would play in the three.
By the way, we're not giving stick to David De Gea. We love him.
No, not at all.
I love David. He's one of my favorite players ever for United. But unfortunately, right now he just does not give us what we need. If you want to continue being a low block team and have David De Gea, sure. Go ahead.
Sheriff's Bullet says we're clearly clueless. Well, tell us why we're clueless then, pal. Come on.
If you want to be a front foot team, David De Gea can't be your guy. If you want to play like Mourinho used to play and get the best out of De Gea, sure, you go ahead and play like that.
This is the problem sometimes, with the likes of Sheriff Bullet. He puts on a decent comment a few comments ago, and then he comes up with that rubbish because he doesn't understand what we're trying to say. It's very easy to say people are clueless. Well, tell us why we're clueless then, pal. You've got the floor now. Tell us.
Well, the thing that I'll say, I'll give my 2 cents on it. A lot of fans complain that we don't sustain attacks, we don't keep teams under the cosh, and the way you do that is by having your back four on the halfway line. Look at Liverpool, look at City. Their centre backs very rarely go into their own half, and you can't do that with a goalkeeper who almost refuses to come off his line. And
absolutely.
Whereas Dean Henderson actually gets you a little bit worried with how often he comes off his line.
This actually highlights a very important point about fans in particular. So I myself did it. I'm not complaining. I'm not criticizing other people I used to do that too. We focus on the ball too much. What did he do with the ball? Oh, he did a nice pass. Oh, he did the Hollywood pass. Oh, he scored a goal from the halfway line. Whatever it is, But the off-ball stuff are like 90% more. Like they're 90% of the game. They're more important than what he did with the ball. That much, because these stuff decides what happens with the ball. So for example, Dean Henderson, this doesn't get registered on stats. Right, because Dean Henderson has interceptions or things that he does that prevents attacks from happening to begin with. So if the attack doesn't even happen, it doesn't get registered. So United on the stats sheet didn't concede chances. But why? Because Dean Henderson came off the line and took away the attacker's balance or took the ball away from him and put it outside. It won't count as an interception because it's a dead ball that went forward, and Dean just went outside of the box and kicked it away.
Well, there's a reason why David De Gea this season is averaging almost twice as many saves as Henderson did last season, isn't there?
And-
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And the other thing, don't forget, is that we're absolutely petrified about the foot race. We won't have a foot race with a centre forward or centre halves wait, because we've got to cover twice as many yards as we would normally do because De Gea is on his line. Henderson's on the penalty spot, stroke 18-yard box. So he's cutting off at least half the yardage already, and he's given the attacker something to think about immediately. And if you look back at the two Atalanta goals, certainly in the second one, De Gea, if De Gea had closed him down and gone in for the challenge, he wouldn't have scored. He would have put him off.
The thing is, you need to put this into context of the law of averages. So if I'm facing 20 shots each game, I'm bound to save some of them. If I'm facing only 2,
of course you are,
then maybe that's 50%. Like maybe I'll save 1, maybe I won't save any of them. So David De Gea counts on high pressure and many shots from unfavorable positions. And the closer and the tighter everybody else to him, the more time he has to react. The quicker his reactions are. So, for example, when he does a double save from a corner, for example, you know what I mean? The ball is there. The reaction time is still impressive, but he likes these situations because it's more to his natural ability of being on the line and just shot stopping. But if he's on a one, and David De Gea used to be good 1v1s, but now he's not in good 1v1s. Every 1v1 against David De Gea is almost a goal. So I'm not saying Dean Henderson is better than him in that. I'm just saying that what De Gea is right now is he's just not good in anything but shot stopping, and even that department is just average, not even above average. And it's a quantity game with De Gea. The more United is on the back foot and conceding shots, the higher the chance he'll have 2 or 3, Hollywood saves, like we say.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, we've been saying it for a couple of weeks now, and we get the same old kickback on it, which is fine. But I'd rather people just think about it first before attacking us. Just think about what you're saying and think about what we're trying to say. And people see football differently. I've said this before, but you can't ignore where we are right now. And I think Ollie's got a big decision to make. He's got to be brave again. He can't wait for De Gea to want to go on holiday or for De Gea to get injured to make that change. He's got to turn around and say, you know what? I need to be a bit stronger. I'm going to try it.
Yeah. And it's a tough decision. Like we're not sitting here and saying it's like just put your leg above a bed and just say, oh, I'm gonna drop this guy. No, it's not as easy as that, because there's contracts, there's demanded minutes, there's agents, there's influence from everything. But you're the manager. It's gonna cost you your job. You have to stand up for yourself. So if you think this guy doesn't fit your team and doesn't complement your team, sorry, your contract doesn't matter to me if I'm going to lose this game. You can kick and fuss about it in the media if you want, but I want to win. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're at Manchester United, don't forget. You're not at Telford United or Stretton United. You're at Manchester United.
Yeah.
So.
Because think about it this way. If, let's say, Ollie drops De Gea permanently, right, and starts playing Dean Henderson, and United start winning, and De Gea makes a fuss about it in the media. Let's say, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say that does happen. If United are winning, who do you think the fans are going to stand beside?
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't care less about David De Gea. I'm like, sorry, buddy, you had your chance and you blew it. We're playing better without you.
It's fair enough. It's a hard truth, but it is.
It's a hard truth. I'm afraid. Yeah,
we saw that last season. I think we're just struggling to let go. I think we have got to do everything we can to keep hold of Dean Henderson, because he is the future of this club. It'd be harsh to sort of shoehorn David De Gea out immediately, but I think it's gradually a process that needs to take place. But on that sort of, it's seemingly a bit of a sour note to end it on, but we do have to end it there. Understand Abdul's got to be somewhere.
Yep. Thank you.
We'll call it a day. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope everyone watching has enjoyed as well. If you have, be sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for Timeline Talk tomorrow. We'll put a tweet out at some point in the morning so you can check it out from there. But yeah, until then, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.